Your career thus far has consisted of equal parts of live work and studio work.
A lot of the training that I had, say from Stevie Wonder, for instance, is he would tell me, play half of what you're playing, and while we're recording. And when I hear the finished product, I can see why, because certain parts and how they fit together didn't want the bass to be so busy on certain songs. And then in other situations, then I would play as much as I wanted to play, and I'd play all over the place and play very busy, and that which had good results too. But I found out that most of the records during the time were very simple bass parts, and they fit together with the guitar part, especially doing R&B, and doing Motown and doing Stax. As opposed to playing live, where I tended to play more live because I wanted to show off for the audience. And then I think later on I matured, and I have a blend of both together, which now I play everything just like I would play it in the studio mainly, and I play it with more freedom, because I think what people are hearing in the audience, a lot of times they want to hear the parts of the record, and that's what I want to hear personally myself too, is I like to hear parts on the record, and I like to hear them clear. So I tend to go more toward the studio now, but it took me time to decipher what I was doing live and what I was doing in the studio.
So did your reputation as a studio player help you get live work, or vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both worked hand in hand. People would call and say, I just heard you on such and such, and I sure would like you to come out on the road and do some touring with us. Or it would work vice versa, where somebody would hear me live and say, I wish I'd like to get you for a project, you and the drummer for a project. That's what happened with Elton John, for instance. We were playing with Leo Sayer, and there was an opening act called Blue that was opening for us, and the guy that was the engineer for Blue, sound engineer, ended up producing Elton's record that next year, and hired me and Alvin Taylor to come over to France and record. We recorded 17 tracks with Elton during the 80s, one being Little Genie and the Fox, the album The Fox, I'm Still Standing, and all that stuff that was during that period. And we had a great time recording that.
Do you have a preference of venue size or style?
For me, kind of a short ceiling is really good for bass. Real high ceilings tend to have a lot of echo or reverb, and it sort of takes the bass out of the bottom end, and I like to hear bottom end is a real treat for me. And we play in in-ear monitors, and we have like a little ambient mic going out toward the audience where we can actually hear that ambience in the room too. So I like sort of like acoustic driven rooms if possible, or that's what I prefer. But really definitely short ceilings like really make the bass sound really solid, and the kick sound solid too.
What do you consider your first major live performance? When, where, and with whom?
I have to say Stevie Wonder at Madison Square Gardens in '73. That was huge. We played 2 nights. Everybody came on the stage, including Sly Stone, Roberta Flack, all of Sly and the Family Stone, and there is a picture of that somewhere, and I just remember being up there, and with Stevie, he doesn't have a set list, so he just goes into all these songs, and you have to know them. And then he'll write a song right there on the spot, so you have to follow him. So I followed his left hand, but that was a real blast. And I've had a couple, and we were in London with Stevie too, and I have audio of that. And Paul McCartney was backstage. We played there for 4 nights at the Rainbow, live at the Rainbow, and there's a bootleg out there with the whole show, and it sounds pretty good too. And I remember going back to the dressing room after the show, and Paul McCartney says, man, I mean, he was watching the show from backstage the whole time for 4 days, and he said, I lick my fingers when I play like that. And he looked at me and he said, that's a bloody good gesture you've got there. And every time I've seen him since, I do this, and I remember.
That is a cool story. What is your advice to any aspiring bassist?
I think learning how to read music is important, and enjoying, basically, music in general. And it's really not about the money. It's really about enjoying what you do and loving what you do. And if you do love what you're doing, then you stay in good health in order to do it. I think that's very important. And listening to what the other band members are doing, especially when you're playing bass, like locking in with the kick drum, listening to the other players and playing parts that work with what the other band members are doing. And I think that's where the money is, And as far as personally, look the part, be on time, and if you're working in a professional situation, don't come late, and get along with everyone, and pretty much, be honest with everyone, and have fun with it. I mean, that's the whole process right there, is having fun with it, and learning as much music as you possibly can, listening to as much music as you can, and learning how to play it.